Throughout history, there have been discoveries that, from the moment they were made, raised more questions than answers. Today, we will explore 3 of these, from 3 different regions of the world, from 3 different eras. 1 from the tropical rainforests of Central America, 1 from the desert coasts of South America, and 1 from the depths of present-day Turkey. Their common point is this: they have been studied for decades and still lack a definitive explanation. Our first stop is Costa Rica. In the southern part of the country, near the Pacific coast, there's a wide plain called the Diquís Delta. In the late 1930s, this area was covered in dense tropical forest until the United Fruit Company arrived. This American corporation began clearing the forests to establish banana farms. Trees were cut down. The land was leveled. During this process, workers came across something in the ground they couldn't make sense of: large, round stones. These weren't ordinary rocks. They were almost perfectly spherical, with smooth surfaces and consistent proportions. These were not natural formations. They were spheres made by human hands. Over 300 have been discovered so far. The smallest are just a few centimeters across. The largest exceed 2.5 meters in diameter and weigh close to 15 tons. All of them are made from gabbro, an extremely hard volcanic rock. Archaeologists point to the Diquís culture, a community that lived in this region between 500 and 1500 AD. Their production methods have been partly understood. They used harder stones as hammers, then polished the surface smooth with sand. The precision they achieved is remarkable even today, and they did it without metal tools. But the real question is, why? What purpose did these spheres serve? Some archaeologists believe they marked the paths leading to the homes of chiefs. Another theory suggests the spheres were aligned with celestial events and functioned as a kind of calendar. None of these have been proven, and there's something that makes finding the answers nearly impossible. The fruit company workers didn't understand the value of the spheres. They pushed them aside with bulldozers. Some were carried off as garden decorations. When rumors spread that they contained gold inside, some were blown apart with dynamite. Today, fewer than a dozen spheres remain in their original positions. In 2014, UNESCO added these spheres to the World Heritage List. But even in the listing, it was clearly stated that the meaning of the spheres remains largely unknown. This time, we're heading to the southern coast of Peru, to a peninsula called Paracas, about 155 miles south of the capital, Lima. In 1928, Peruvian archaeologist Julio Tello discovered a large burial ground here. Hundreds of mummified bodies were found inside, but there was something unusual about these bodies. Their skulls were remarkably large and noticeably elongated toward the back. Tello found over 300 such skulls. They're estimated to be around 3,000 years old. And when measured, a striking result emerged. These skulls were 25% larger and 60% heavier than an average human skull. Cranial reshaping is a known practice throughout history. Wooden boards or cloth bands are tied to an infant's head, and over time, the skull takes on a different shape. Many cultures around the world have done this, but with the Paracas Skulls, this explanation alone isn't enough, because head binding changes the shape of the skull, but not its size. Compress it on one side, and it extends on the other, but the overall size stays the same. The Paracas skulls are different, not just in shape, but in size. They're bigger, heavier. That's not a difference you can achieve by applying external pressure. And the size isn't the only unusual thing. These skulls are missing certain bone structures that should be present in a normal human. Specific connection points on the upper part of the skull are absent. The opening where the spinal cord connects to the skull is in a different position and smaller than normal. These are not things that can be explained by external pressure. In 2014, DNA samples were taken from these skulls. The results caused a stir. Initial tests claimed to have found genetic traits that didn't match any known human group. Further analysis revealed something even more interesting. The genetic profile of these individuals was consistent not with the indigenous people of Peru, but with Eastern Europe and Western Asia. Specifically, it pointed to the region between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. In other words, these people living on the coast of Peru 3,000 years ago were genetically linked to a completely different corner of the world. The scientific community approached these results with caution, of course. The credibility of those who conducted the tests was questioned, and the results were announced not in an official scientific publication, but on social media. In 2022, an analysis by an independent team showed that these skulls were genetically consistent with modern humans. So a non-human being is not in question. But the size difference, the missing bone structures, and the unexpected genetic profile still haven't been fully explained. In the interior of Turkey, there's a small town called Derinkuyu in the province of Nevşehir. The region is known as Cappadocia, a landscape shaped by volcanic activity, famous for its rock formations called fairy chimneys. From the surface, it looks like an ordinary Anatolian town. But in 1963, something far from ordinary happened here. A man living in the town was renovating his home. When he knocked down a wall in his basement, he found a room behind it. Beyond the room, a tunnel. The tunnel led to more rooms. This man, who just wanted to renovate his house, had unknowingly opened the door to a massive underground city. Derinkuyu extends 85 meters below the surface. Picture a 25-story skyscraper, the same distance, but going straight down into the earth. Large enough to shelter 20,000 people along with their livestock and food supplies. Inside, there are residential areas, kitchens, stables, wine and olive oil presses, a church and chapels, schools, storage rooms, and a punishment area. Who built the city is still debated. Some point to the Phrygians in the 8th century BC, others to the Hittites around the 15th century BC. What is certain is that the city's current structure was shaped during the Byzantine era. Christians who settled in the region expanded the structures, adding churches, schools, and assembly halls. The city was used at full capacity, especially during the Arab-Byzantine Wars between 780 and 1180 AD. The engineering is just as impressive as the city's size. Over 52 ventilation shafts reach deep underground, some as far as 55 meters. These shafts didn't just provide air. They were also used for communication between levels. The water source comes from the lowest levels. The reason is simple: to prevent an enemy from poisoning the water from above. The name Derinkuyu itself comes from these deep wells. Each level can be sealed off independently. Half-ton round stone doors roll into tunnel entrances, completely blocking passage, and they can only be opened from the inside. Over 100 hidden entrances have been identified. In the courtyards of houses, among rocks, inside fairy chimneys. From the surface, there's no trace, but underneath lies a world where thousands of people could live for months. And Derinkuyu doesn't stand alone. It's connected to another underground city, Kamakli, through a 9-kilometer tunnel. Over 200 underground structures have been discovered in Cappadocia, but Derinkuyu remains the deepest, the largest, and the most complex. Throughout the centuries, the city served as a refuge for people fleeing different threats. From Arab raids to Mongol invasions, people sheltered in these underground chambers and lived beneath the surface until the danger passed. With the 1923 population exchange, the region's Greek Orthodox population departed, and the city was abandoned. For 40 years, no one knew it existed, until that wall came down in 1963. Today, only half of the city has been explored. The rest is still down there in the dark, waiting.